They thought a piece of paper could break us, President Trump declared, his voice booming across the White House lawn. Vice President J.D. Vance stepped forward, his gaze like steel. They were wrong. And Congresswoman Crockett, we have the receipts. The day began with the deceptive calm of any other Washington morning. The air was thick with humidity, the political channels humming with predictable chatter. Then, at precisely 9:03 a.m., the digital bombshell detonated. A breaking news banner flashed across every screen in the West Wing, a headline engineered for maximum damage. White House in chaos. Trump mocks hillbilly, Vance in leaked private conversation. Attached was a scanned document, appearing to be an official White House transcript of a conversation between President Donald J. Trump and an unnamed senior advisor. The text was brutal. It was filled with condescending language attributed to the president, belittling Vice President J.D. Vance's Appalachian roots, questioning his intellect, and framing him as a subordinate to be managed, not a partner to be respected. The political world ignited. It was the ultimate betrayal, a story so perfectly aligned with the media's preferred narrative that it was accepted as gospel before a single official comment could be made. And pouring gasoline on the fire was Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Within the hour, she stood before a forest of microphones on Capitol Hill, her expression a mask of practiced outrage. She wasn't just concerned, she was triumphant. Today we have seen the true face of this administration, she proclaimed, her voice ringing with performative sorrow. An administration not just in chaos, but one defined by cruelty and contempt. The document which I have in my hands proves that President Trump views his own vice president as nothing more than a political tool, a hillbilly, in his own disgusting words, to be mocked behind his back. She held up the paper, letting the camera zoom in. This isn't just a political squabble. This is about character. It's about a moral bankruptcy at the very heart of our government. She then looked directly into the main network camera, her eyes gleaming with malice as she delivered the kill shot. And I have to ask Vice President Vance directly, how can you stand by a man who so clearly despises you? How can you serve a president who believes you are a fool? Your silence is complicity. The media erupted. Crockett's words were electric, framing the narrative as an unforgivable act of personal treachery. The trap had been sprung. The White House was silent. The world watched, waiting for the inevitable implosion. Inside the Oval Office, the atmosphere was a strange mix of controlled chaos and intense focus. Aides buzzed in the background, their faces pale with anxiety. On the large screen mounted to the wall, Crockett's press conference played on a loop. President Trump sat behind the resolute desk, not angry, but with a look of profound disappointment. As if watching a poorly executed play, Vice President Vance stood near the fireplace, his jaw set, his eyes fixed on the screen. He wasn't watching Crockett. He was analyzing her. The president muted the television with a flick of a remote. The room fell silent. "Garbage," Trump said, his voice a low rumble. He looked at Vance, his expression unwavering. "J.D., you know this is complete and utter garbage, right?" Vance met his gaze. There was no hint of doubt in his eyes, only a cold, analytical fire. "It's not just garbage, Mr. President. It's a weapon. A crudely made one, but a weapon nonetheless. And I think I know who fired it." "She's so desperate," Trump mused, shaking his head. "They think a lie like this, a piece of paper, can break everything we've built." "They're counting on a public fight," Vance replied, his voice sharp and clear. "They want me to issue a wounded statement. They want you to attack. They want to see us at each other's throats. It's the only play they have left." "So we don't give it to them," the president said, a slow, determined grin spreading across his face. He leaned forward, his energy suddenly filling the room. "We don't issue statements. We don't hide. We walk out there, together, side by side. We'll do it on the lawn." Vance nodded, already a step ahead. "My team's been on it since the alert hit my phone. We've made a couple of calls to friends, people who are loyal to this administration, not to the bureaucracy." He took a half step closer to the desk. "We have a name, Mr. President, and a connection. They were sloppy." Trump's grin widened. "Good. Let's go show them what a real team looks like." An hour later, the White House press corps was assembled on the South Lawn, a chaotic sea of reporters buzzing with anticipation. They expected a damage control operation, perhaps a terse statement from the press secretary. Instead, the doors to the Oval Office opened, and out walked President Donald J. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. Together, they walked in lockstep, projecting an aura of absolute unity that instantly silenced the crowd. They approached the podium, a fortress of two against the storm. President Trump gripped the sides of the podium, his presence commanding the space. He scanned the faces of the reporters, a look of almost amused contempt in his eyes. He began to laugh. Not a small chuckle, but a deep, hearty laugh that echoed across the lawn. "What a day," he boomed, the laughter subsiding into a broad smile. "You all look so serious, so concerned. You've been handed a piece of paper, a pathetic forgery from some very desperate people, and you've treated it like a sacred text." He leaned into the microphone. "Let me be as clear as I can possibly be. The document is a fake. It's a disgrace. And the story is a lie, pushed by the same people who have been lying about our movement since the day we began." He turned and gestured to Vance, who stood stoic and resolute by his side. "This man," Trump said, his voice dropping with genuine warmth, "is a warrior. He's a patriot. He's an incredible vice president, and he is my friend. The idea that I would say those things is garbage, and the people who wrote it and the people who are pushing it, they know it." He had set the stage. He had absorbed the initial blow with pure force of will. Now it was time for the counterpunch. He stepped back, nodding to his vice president. J.D. Vance stepped forward. The air grew still. Where Trump was a force of nature, Vance was a blade of steel. His voice was calm, measured, and dangerously precise. "This morning," Vance began, "our opponents tried to manufacture a crisis based on a lie. They wanted to create division. They failed." He let that sink in. They failed because their attack was based on a flawed premise, that our partnership is fragile. It is not. It is built on a shared vision for this country. And they failed because they were sloppy. He looked up, his eyes seeming to find the camera broadcasting live to the nation. "You see, in the digital age, forgeries leave fingerprints. Metadata doesn't lie. Timestamps tell a story." He paused, letting the tension build to a breaking point. "They thought a piece of paper could break us," he said, echoing the president's sentiment. "They were wrong, and Congresswoman Crockett, we have the receipts." From his inner jacket pocket, Vance produced a thin folder. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. He held it up for all to see. In this folder is a full forensic report, compiled in the last 2 hours by some of the finest and most loyal digital investigators in this government. It contains a sworn affidavit from a White House analyst who, sickened by the corruption he witnessed, came forward this morning. And it contains a digital trace, an electronic signature, that proves this forgery originated from a server accessed by a senior staffer in your own congressional office. Congresswoman, it was created late last night and sent to the media from a burner email account just before dawn. A collective gasp went through the press corps. It was a stunning, devastating reversal. "This wasn't a leak," Vance declared, his voice cutting through the silence. "This was an attack, a failed political hit job, and a potential federal crime." He placed the folder decisively on the podium, a symbol of their total victory. The story wasn't about a divided White House anymore. It was about a criminal conspiracy. The plot had collapsed in on itself. President Trump stepped back to the podium, placing a hand on Vance's shoulder. Their united front was unbreakable, their loyalty not just stated, but proven under fire. They had walked into the firestorm together and emerged not only unscathed, but stronger. The American people had just witnessed what real strength and true loyalty looked like. What did you think of the moment President Trump and Vice President Vance turned the tables at the press conference? Was their joint appearance the most effective way to crush the narrative? If you enjoy stories where strategy, loyalty, and truth prevail, make sure to subscribe and join our community for more.